What's up? Today we're going to be talking about whether barbering's right for you or not, or whether you should just stick to the traditional route, whether it be college. But what if I told you that you can make as much or more money from barbering than someone with a master's degree? Truthfully, a lot of people downplay barbering. They say it's a side hustle. I can't make enough money, whatever it is. And if you don't know who I am, coming into this podcast or to this video, my name is Luis Cobos. I'm also known as Cowboy Cobos on Instagram and on social media, on all platforms. But on top of that, I'm also a business owner. And it all started from, guess what? Barbering. A little bit of background about me. I've been cutting hair for 8 years. I've been a business owner for a little over 3 years now in terms of having storefronts as barbershops. I also have helped. At this moment, we have 28 barbers working for my business, the Ranch Barber Company, and I've actually built a platform on social media as well. I have almost 20,000 on TikTok, about 20,000 on Instagram, and we're growing. I feel like I'm barely starting still. For a lot of people, this would be their "I made it" moment. Now, if you're here to listen to whether barbering is right for you or not, you come to the right episode. A lot of people downplay it. People will get a degree, spend 6 years in college, get in debt, and they'll talk crap about trades, right? Barbering is a trade. The difference is with most trades, you're an employee, you still get paid a set amount of money, right? Whereas barbering, you kind of have control of how much you get paid and all that. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to start off with this. If you're comparing the amount of money that you can make comparably from someone with a master's degree and someone that is just cuts hair, right? Air quotes. I will tell you this: um, it is hard. It is very different. But you will talk to a lot of people that graduate from college, and they will tell you that they aren't guaranteed a job out of college. I've actually heard of people, with bachelor's degrees, working at McDonald's, flipping patties because they have a problem finding a job in the career that they graduated in. And I think that's the problem. A lot of people go to college, they're not even 100% sure about the career they want to get into, and they end up failing. I think that's the problem, right? Too many people are stuck in a position of listening to what others have to tell them. Maybe they want to be the first person that ever graduated from college from their family, all these other reasons that aren't smart financial decisions. Now, the only downside to that is that, yes, with a degree, you can make a good amount of money. You can hopefully get a good career and then build from that, and you'll have like a set amount of salary. But, let's say the economy goes bad, what's going to guarantee your job? That being said, as a barber, you have the potential to make a lot more money or as much money as someone with a master's degree. Why do I give you those numbers, right? If you're talking about strictly numbers, not degrees, whatever, right? Think about this. The average haircut in America right now is about $35 to $40 a haircut. To some people, that might be too much, but you know what? It's called inflation. Supply and demand, right? Haircuts used to be $20 10 years ago. In some places, $25 10 years ago. I've been cutting hair for 8 years. When I started cutting hair full time, which was 7 years ago, because I started 8 years ago, but 7 years ago, I took it as a serious career. I was at $20 a haircut. So think about that. In 7 years, if we're at 35, $40 as the average haircut in America, at least, like you're actually making decent money an hour, even if you do one haircut an hour. Let's say you're averaging $40 a haircut and you do 50 haircuts a week, which is extremely, extremely possible. You're doing $2,000 a week, right? 52 weeks later, you're at $104,000. You're making money that someone with a master's degree makes. I know a lot of people with a bachelor's degree that don't even touch anything close to 100. Maybe if you're a nurse, you know what I mean, and those are safe careers, so more power to you. But the difference is, right, that you're not going to school for 5, 6 years. If you get a bachelor's, you're going to school for 4 years. You do 2 years of prerequisites, and you're not actually like aiming towards nothing. That's just the basic classes that a college has, that has you take in order for you to actually get to a place where you can start taking the classes you need for your specific degree, right? And just before anybody says anything, right, I want you to know something. I went to college. I did it for a year. It wasn't for me. I've always been kind of a rebel. I've never been someone to listen to what people have to tell me. So for me, barbering was a career that kind of like allowed me to bet completely on myself. And where college, I just didn't see the point of wasting my time, right? And that's the keyword you have to remember. For me, it was wasting. I felt like I was wasting my time going to college because I didn't want to invest all this time and not get paid for it. Whereas in barbering, at least in California, we have something called an apprenticeship program where you're actually able to go to school while and get your hours done while you're making money. So for me, it was like a win-win. I was like, I can get certified by the state of California. I get my license. I can work as a professional barber, do this full time, and I build my clientele, right? As I'm getting my hours. By the time I got my license, I was already making $200 to $2,500 a week cutting hair alone. And that's before taxes, yes, but you also get to write more things off. Whereas with the master's degree, when you're an employee, you don't get to write things off like you were your own business. So once again, number one, the things to consider when you're taking the more traditional route, you are going to spend a lot of years. So unless you're going to be a doctor or maybe even do something with the master's and turn that into a business, it's very hard for me at least to fathom going to 6 years of school, get into debt. That's the other thing that people don't talk about is the debt that you get into going to college. For something you're unsure about. At least with cutting hair, you get to try it on the side, cut up your homies, you get to cut up your best friend, your brother, your dad, your nephews, and maybe you're like, you know what, I don't like cutting hair. And that's okay too. But guess what? You're not spending thousands of dollars and years of your life to figure that out. So if you were to ask me at the very least, with barbering, you have the ability to try it out, buy some clippers, and if they don't work out, you can resell them, make some of that money back, and then you can go to college. Whereas if you go straight to school and you don't think about doing barbering and you kind of just quit on it before you start, you go straight to school and now you get in debt for a career that you don't even know that you'll like in 10 years. So, something to consider. Um, Honestly, outside of that, I would say the most important thing that people don't like miss out on when it comes to like life, right, is the freedom to do what you want, right? If you take the more traditional route, you work for someone, you don't run your own business, you're an employee at the end of the day. No matter how you twist it when you go to college and you try to build, you try to climb up the ladder, as they like to say in the corporate world, um, you get to a place where, you don't have the freedom to do what you want. Now, mind you, in my business, right, I have 3 locations once again, you have the ability to do what you want. You have the ability to be in a position where you can make your own schedule. You can, charge whatever you want to charge. But I do mentor people. I built people up inside my business to do pretty well for themselves financially. That equate the numbers that I gave you earlier, right? But that's the difference, right? You have the freedom to be who you are, to express yourself. As you can tell, like I have a bunch of tattoos. Same thing, right? I was in a position where I was a mechanic. I was being told what to do, what time to come in, what time I could leave. I was trying to figure out a different trade that didn't involve something like landscaping. I used to landscape, I used to be in construction, just working really hard jobs out in the sun. I would come home extremely exhausted, smelling like dirt. I just didn't like that feeling, right? And even though I respect blue collar jobs, at a certain point when you've done it for like 5, 10 years, because I've done it since I was a teenager, even on the side, like on the weekends, I I got to a place I was like, I want to work a corporate job. I want to do a job where I don't go home feeling like dirty, like I smell like dirt. And then when I was a mechanic, it would smell like oil. You bust your knuckles all the time inside of the engine bay and everything. And it's like you get tired. You get tired of just feeling dirty, And that's another thing. If you're considering making a transition from a job like construction or being a mechanic or something that you feel dirty at the end of the day, it's a good option too. Because for me, right, I'm a felon. I went to prison. I have a record, and it's hard to find corporate jobs or people will hire you if or they call it white collar jobs, right? Well, people will hire you if you have a record. And if you haven't noticed, I have a lot of tattoos too. Some of them I got them after I became a barber, but a lot of these I had some on my neck already. I have a background of just constantly being tatted since I was 18 years old. So when I was considering a career choice, I kind of realized like I have to find something or make a career choice that wasn't going to be your traditional job. So I couldn't fit into the corporate world, at least immediately. So one of my options was being a barber. And I think once again, being here now, like I can have as many tattoos as I want. Nobody's going to give a crap. So you can do the same thing. You can express yourself really creatively with your body as far as tattoos go. You can dress how you want to some extent, right? Like you don't want to look lazy, whatever, but you can wear the shirt that you want. You have the freedom to kind of carry yourself how you want inside of a shop. And I think that's important for you to consider. So that meant a lot to me. I would also add that, You know, you get to a place of creating your own schedule. When you have kids, when you have a family, you can actually take time off whenever you want. Whereas in companies, if you take too much time off, they'll fire you. When you're in a position to say, "Hey, I'm gonna take Saturday off or I'm gonna leave early on Saturday to go to my family's party," like that's on you. If you make less money, that's on you. Who cares? If you pay your booth rent, you're an independent contractor. How much money you make is completely up to you. And I think having the freedom of your schedule is completely important. I think too many people focus on having a safe job. Well, I remember being alive during the 2008 recession. I remember being in a position where I was finding a hard time finding a job, and I was working dead end jobs like warehouse jobs where I'd go in at 4 in the morning and do 12-hour shifts, and I hated my life. So like having the freedom to control your own schedule and do what you want and still make respectable money, I think that's life. You're not just surviving, you're living. So like I think the freedom of your schedule and the freedom of your time is extremely important. And I want to add to that. Just because you could make a master's degree type money, right? Where you're making six figures a year as a barber, maybe that's not your goal. And that's something you have to ask yourself as well. Do I want to be rich from being a barber? Do I want to make six figures and make a lot of money? If that's not your goal, if your end goal isn't to become a business owner and own a barbershop and continue to build, the other thing you have to also consider is, do I want to just have more peace in my life? Like, what if you can work 4 days, right? 4 days, 10-hour days, you're doing 40-hour weeks. And then now you're in a position where you're actually building off of that. You have 3 days off already. You're working 40-hour weeks like any traditional job. And then you have 3 days off with your family. That's beautiful. So having the creative space to be able to create your schedule, to be able to dress how you want, to make the amount of money you want. Maybe you don't want to get rich. Maybe you just want to be comfortable enough to take care of your family. That's okay. Being a barber gives you that freedom. Where once again, if you have a degree, if you work a job and you're trying to climb up the ladder, you might work long hours while the business owner, right? Because you're your own business when you're behind the chair. The business owner is taking days off on his yacht and he's partying it up with his family and he has days off and you're working 60, 70 hours a week to make someone else rich. So there's something to consider. If you were to ask me, I don't regret becoming a barber. I would want to add, and I would want to tell you, consider your options. There is a downside to it, and the biggest downside is, you know, you you're completely responsible for your own future and how much money you make. I think a lot of people don't consider those ideas, and I think they think it's just gonna happen. They're just gonna get rich. They're just gonna make good money. That's not how it is. It's not that easy. You have to hustle. You have to pass out business cards. You have to market yourself. Once again, you are your own business. So that's the only downside to being a barber. But if it's something that you have inside of you to do, I say go for it. It worked out for me. Once again, I've been a barber for 8 years. I've been a business owner for 3 years, a little over 3 years, and I have the ability to give back to others and mentor them. But it's worked out for me, and look how far it got me. 3 businesses later, I'm doing better than I ever have financially. I'm looking after others, and that all started from that first haircut in April of 2020. My bad, 2017. If it means anything, if you're in a position where you're second guessing it, remember, you can spend 6 years going to college and you can make the same amount of money inside of a year to 2 years. That's all it really takes if you hustle it out. Remember that. If you want to make good money, you want to bet on yourself, you want the freedom of time, and you don't want to get into huge student loan debt, I think barbering is for you.